Good morning, great Americans. It's another great American video. Merry Christmas, everybody. Christmas is just a few days away. Christmas 2024, just a couple of days away. I already made a Christmas video, so this is not that. But still, Merry Christmas to everybody. Um, so in a recent video, I challenged the whole idea of even being in NATO anymore. We all know as conservatives, we know one thing that once a little something begins in government, take a government program, maybe even a well intentioned government program, it takes on a life of its own and becomes a beast, right? It starts growing and growing and going into areas where it never should have gone. And next thing you know, it's an entitlement. And next thing you know, you can't get rid of it. Government just screws up everything, right? This also applies to foreign policies and especially foreign relationship. Now we don't think about this a lot, but somehow, some way, the idea of NATO, as an example, has grown into this mythical proportion that it's just a must, that it's an absolute, that it has to go on forever, right? And you just can't challenge being in NATO. Of course, we have to be in NATO, you know. And I challenged that in my recent video. No, we don't have to be in NATO. There's no more Soviet Union. We don't need a wait NATO. We're $40 trillion in debt. They take all our money. They don't do it. We don't need to be in NATO. Let them defend themselves. Okay. NATO started out when Europe was all messed up and destroyed by World War II, and they were like a beat up person laying in the street, that needed help, and we were there to help them and protect them while they got better. Well, guess what? They're better now. They're rich, they're wealthy, they're well to do, they have modern weapon systems. They can protect themselves. They don't need us, and we don't need to be spending that money. So, anyway, so I don't want to go to that's in my previous video. But the point is, just like government programs, government policies, including foreign policy and relationship with other countries, can sort of take on a life of their own and get to the point where you don't even bother to question them or cut them or slash them, even though it needs to be done. So I am now going to challenge a sacred cow, if you will, and that is the so-called special relationship that we have with England. I was thinking about, or Great Britain, or I never know what to call it, England, Great Britain. I guess it's Great Britain. Um, you know, a lot of the stuff that's happening in England and Great Britain recently reminds us that they do not have a constitution and they do not have rights. And right now, some basic, what Americans would consider to be basic constitutional rights, which they don't have over there. I mean, they have them by law, but they're not they can be they can be stomped on because they don't have a constitution. They don't actually have a Bill of Rights. And that's what's happening over there right now. And we see good people, basic, simple, good British people being thrown in jail and being arrested. You're like, the government is a Nazi government. I saw a woman get arrested for praying. She was simply praying there in the street. She was standing there. She wasn't like waving her hands and shouting out loud. She was just standing there quietly. Just, from a distance, if you looked at her, you would just think it was just someone just standing there, not doing anything. But the cop came up to her and literally said that praying is illegal and arrested her. And all she was doing was standing there. And there's other people that have gotten arrested simply for speaking their mind on immigration and stuff. It's terrible. It's terrible. And that, what's happening there in that aspect led me as a Catholic and a Christian to think about other things. And another thing that it was on the front burner for a while, but nobody really thinks about it anymore, is the fact that the so-called Church of England, right, has openly homosexual sodomites as bishops. That's antichrist. So I'm not going to, I'm not going to go into a whole lot about Christian theology and all that. Suffice to say for this video that any Christian church or a church that calls themselves Christian that is okay with sodomy is not a Christian church. That's Antichrist. Sodomy is a sin, it's a mortal sin, and no Christian can embrace sin as a lifestyle and still be a Christian. You can't do it. You cannot. Listen, no Christian can embrace sin as a lifestyle and still be a Christian. I mean, unfortunately, in America, you're free to say and do whatever. I mean, you're a man, you say you're a woman. I mean, we live in the left lives in a fantasy world these days, and they don't even know what reality is. And you can call yourself a Christian. I mean, legally, you have the right to call yourself. Again, there goes to that constitutional right of free speech. You can call yourself a Christian, but in fact, you cannot be a Christian and embrace a lifestyle of sin. So, back to my point. The Church of England has bishops and priests, and their policy is to openly embrace the lifestyles of evil and sin and sodomy. Guess what? I'm sorry, the Church of England is no longer a church. It is Antichrist by authentic Christian. Now, all you non-Christians out there are listening to me, you think I'm nuts and stuff and whatever. But I'm getting, believe me, I'm going somewhere with all this. So when you have, so let's think about this now. You have a country, right? You have a country that is now arresting people in the streets just for nothing. For nothing. Just because some moron in the parliament decided that it's illegal to stand on the sidewalk and pray quietly to yourself. Then all of now you're arrested for that. You're arrested for criticizing immigration. You're arrested for all kinds of stuff over there. And their official church, who, by the way, the king is the official head of. I mean, we all know the story of how the Church of England came about, right? King Henry VIII and Saint, what's his name? Is it Thomas More? Is that who I'm thinking of? Thomas More. So, King Henry VIII, he took over because the Catholic Church was all over Europe, right? And King Henry VIII said, I'm taking over all the churches. I am proclaiming myself to be the head of the Church of England, and all you Catholic bishops, you will no longer recognize the Pope. You will recognize me, and if you don't, I'm going to kill you. So once again, we had a lot of spineless, weak Catholic bishops who said, okay, like we got today, nothing new there, right? And so the whole Church of England is fraudulent and fake, is built on violence and a lie, and it embraces evil and sodomy. So let's put those two things together, right? You have a nation which now arrests people at will, fascist style. People have no rights. Yeah. And from a spiritual point of view, the official Church of England, of which the king is the head, is Antichrist. It's true. Nobody wants to say it, but I'm saying it because it's true. People love to dance around. Well, I tell you what, one thing I learned from Donald Trump, man, is fuck all the fake news and the whiners and the criers and people who say, oh, you're mean. And tell the truth. Tell the truth, and people will hear the truth, or people who are open to hearing the truth, right? Obviously not the left-wing freaks and trannies and all that, but people who have an ear for the truth and who are actually honest with themselves intellectually, they will hear the truth and they won't get mad at you for speaking the truth. The fact is that, so back to the beginning of my video, challenging established norms. I told you that I challenged NATO in my previous video. I am now challenging our special relationship with England because from where I sit, it's an evil country. One might even use the phrase evil empire. Even though most of most of Great Britain's empire is gone, right? I mean, there used to be a time when the British Empire spanned the globe, right? They were over there in what people call Palestine. Of course, there is no Palestine, but that's another story. They were over there. They were in India, Hong Kong, uh, some of these islands over here. And of course, at one point, the United States was British colony too. The British Empire spanned the globe at one point, so it's pretty much all gone. They have a little piece of they have a little piece up in Northern Ireland. I don't know. They have anything else? I think they have a couple of islands or something like that. They have a couple of islands and they have Northern Ireland, but that's pretty much the realm of the once great British Empire. But still, it is technically an empire, technically, but pretty damn small one. So it is evil. It's an evil empire. It really is. So I'm just throwing it out there, man. I report and you decide. When you have, from a government and law enforcement point of view, when you have people being swept up off the streets for no good reason at all, and you have an official national church which is literally antichrist and embraces evil, I don't know what else to call it but an evil empire. Somebody tell me I'm wrong, right? So that's just my morning moos for the day. Is we need to stop thinking of them as somehow some sort of super duper special, uh, you know, special relation way above everybody else. That's because they're not. They're not. And and yeah. So and NATO too. So check out my video about NATO. We should be getting out of NATO. Well, actually, the conclusion I made in my last video is that we should only be in NATO to the we how do I say we should be paid. They should be paying us to be in NATO. So I make the argument we should not be putting out any American tax dollars for NATO. In Europe should be paying us to be in NATO the same way the Saudi Arabians paid us to fight the first Gulf War. It was for their protection mostly, and they lavished us with a lot of money. We were almost like mercenaries in the first Gulf War. Nobody wants to say that because it's sort of a not very honorable thing to be a mercenary army. But in all intents and purposes, we were a mercenary army in the first Gulf War, and the Saudis, they doled out tons of cash because they were afraid. Iraq had just gone into Kuwait, and they thought they were next. And that's what we should be in Europe. Oh, we're there defending you, then you pay us. So that's the point I made. So we need to challenge norms, these things that we have just taken for granted, that are always just the way they are, and it's just the way it is, and it never changes. No, shit changes, man. Stuff changes. And so that's it. I challenge our special relationship with England. I hereby declare, in my opinion, that they are an evil empire, and we should no longer consider them to be some sort of super duper. I mean, I'm not saying that we make them an enemy. I'm just saying we should no longer consider them to be some super duper friend that shares our values, because they don't. They don't. So that's the moos for today. The morning moos on what is it? December 21st. Just a couple of days away from Christmas. So again, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Our website has been discontinued. The URL used to be terryobrien.online. That is no more, although I think it's still there, but it's coming down. We moved over to Substack. So I put a link to Substack in the description of this video. Please bookmark it, subscribe to it. It's free. And then with this one, it's nice. You get an email every time something new gets posted there. So that's pretty cool. And it saves me a couple of bucks. So anyway, please click the link in the description of this video. Subscribe for free. And please like my video and share my video. And I will see you in the next great American video. Adios, muchachos.